So after trying out the New World preview, my thoughts on the game in its current state are as follows.
Because, like, we've already seen everything in the game. Like, you guys have watched me do everything. So thank you guys. And we're just going to go and talk about the positives and negatives about it, okay? And it's like if we watched this whole thing, it would take forever, and we don't need to do that.
The world is my favorite aspect of this game.
I agree with that.
The scale of the trees, buildings, and monoliths, the density of the vegetation, the graphics, lighting, and weather effects. It's just a beautiful game, and I feel like it's easy to get immersed when playing. The sound effects of the game I think are really good, from the leveling up effect to killing mobs and getting loot and crafting gear. The sound effects are very punchy and impactful. The game
they're good, but they're unbalanced. Right, there's like some things that are like just really fucking loud and other things that aren't, and some things are like controlled by the volume sliders and other things are not. I think that's a bad thing.
It has a nice soundtrack. I like what they're going for with the combat system. We've never had a Dark Souls style combat system in an MMO, so the general direction is good. That being said, it needs a lot of work, which I'll talk about later. I
agree with that too. I think that the Dark Souls system is really cool, but I don't know if it's going to work in a game that has high latency and that works the same way that this one does. So it sounds like a great idea, but the outcome really is that you like roll out of something and you still get hit by it, or you just get hit by things that are like just not well done. Like if it was a perfect game with no latency problems, then yes, I would agree. But it doesn't really seem like that's going to happen.
Charting all the landmarks in a zone is fun, although there should be some kind of achievement system with rewards for fully charting an entire zone. Maybe incentivize it by having a fog of war to enhance that feeling of exploration too. I really enjoy the crafting and gathering in this game. It's really simple, and the RNG aspect to it does give you a feeling of excitement. I also like how the trees are physically cut down, rocks break apart, and so on. Crafting is also super core to this game's design, and the best gear is crafted. So unlike other MMOs, hopefully it won't become irrelevant. It's cool that you can level up every weapon in the game. If you get bored of one playstyle, you can try another, and this at least...
I like that a lot too, because you can choose what you want to do and go back and forth with weapons. And it seems like more realistic, because if you're like a guy, like basically everybody in this story is just guys. And it's in like, 1500s America. So it would make sense that like, oh, well, if you want to use an axe, you just train axes. You want to use a mace, just train maces. It makes sense from that perspective.
Gives you something else to grind out at level 60. I like the reputation system that each zone has. It's fairly simple, but it just adds that extra little sense of progression when leveling up. And I like the majority of the game's user interface, and think it looks really clean overall. Despite my praising of the general direction of the combat, it needs a lot of work in my opinion. A lot of the time it feels very clunky. Pretty much every ability roots you in place with a lengthy animation lock.
The abilities that don't root you in place will not usually work most of the time, and then whenever you get hit by an ability, you lose control of your character for too long.
The iframe on the dodge roll feels non-existent or highly inconsistent.
It's
Abilities don't register on enemies sometimes. The combat struggles with desync. Projectiles are blocked by random other players.
The combat does not struggle with desync. The combat is desynced.
And if you're attacked by multiple enemies at once, then you're stagger locked to death.
You can't even
I don't like how
character.
abilities from all your weapons share a global cooldown. In the alpha a while ago, this wasn't the case, and in my opinion, the game was more fun as a result. This basically de-incentivizes you from using multiple weapons. Why would you ever use a 2-minute cooldown ability on your sword and shield's Q to then be locked out of the Q ability of your other 2 weapons for 2 minutes?
Exactly.
It just doesn't feel right, and I think it lowers the depth and potential skill cap of the combat. The game's weapon talent system is extremely shallow when it comes to choice. New World has one of the most boring questing systems I've seen in an MMO, and it needs a complete rework.
That's true. He's
Every
gonna say
main
what I'm gonna
quest
say.
is to kill mobs, search chests,
and then loot boxes,
run for 10 minutes to an NPC, and do the same thing again
That's
in
all
a different area. To improve this, they should take notes from the dynamic events and questing in Guild Wars 2, as I think this would work much better in New World. Currently, the only viable way to level up is spamming faction quests and grind mobs.
There isn't enough
variety in enemy types in this game.
Way.
You've got like 5 types of skeletons, pirates, corrupted, angry earth, and aggressive animals. Copy and paste existed around the world.
Yep.
There needs to be more diversity to make each zone has its own flavour, because right now, to me, the only difference between Brightwood and Weaver's Fen is the environment. Maybe the game...
And that's another problem, is that there's almost no mob variety in the game. There's basically none. So you go, like, you fight the same types of mobs at, like, level 10 or 15 that you're going to be fighting at level 60. And that, in my opinion, is a huge fucking, like, bad thing. I don't like that at all. Because you don't really feel like you're making progress. You're doing the same exact things over and over. It's alpha? Well, yeah, well, that's why I'm giving my feedback, right? And so if they know that it's alpha, then they're like, okay, well, that's going to change, so I'm not going to worry about that. But that's just what I think.
Needs more unique assets when it comes to buildings. First Light, Everfall, Monarch Bluffs, and Restless Shore
they all look the same.
All feel like the exact same towns with the buildings arranged differently.
Yes.
Out in the world when questing, you'll go into the same farmhouse over and over again, to the point where it feels like there's only 3 or 4 building variations here too. And when the majority of your content is looting chests from buildings, it becomes noticeable very quickly.
Yeah,
the game has no swimming, character creation is lacking by modern MMO standards, sound levels on some ability.
Yeah, the character creation in New World is actually even worse than WoW's character creation. Like, it's even more restrictive than that. And I think that if it's worse than WoW's character creation, that's pretty fucking bad. Okay? That is pretty fucking bad.
Are way off and need adjusting. Everyone's character kind of looks the same due to a lack of diversity in weapons, armor,
you have to
and
buy
cosmetics.
the
game has player
ones,
collision but no momentum physics, so a single player can just trap you inside of a building with you not being able to push them out of the way. Vaulting
really
and climbing feels like it only works half of the time. The quest UI is dysfunctional for anything more than 3 quests at a time, and different quest types aren't visually displayed on the map, such as faction PvE quests versus faction PvP quests. The territory wars in New World are probably the worst implementation of a siege mode I've seen in an MMO so far. First off, you need to run across the map to sign up, which can take as long as the actual war lasts. The leader of the attacking guild is chosen at random, which means a random one-man guild can own an entire settlement. The battle itself just lacks scope and doesn't feel epic like it does in other games like BDO, Guild Wars 2, and Lineage 2.
I've done the wars a few times, and I think they're pretty good. Okay? Like, I don't think that they're awful. But I've done, like, I think 3 wars or 2 wars, and I don't know, like, the nuts and bolts to it. So, like, to me, it sounds like, yeah, this is fine, it's whatever. But, like, LazyPeon, like, has played way more MMOs than I have. So if he thinks that other games do it better, I will probably just take his word for it. I think that it could be a lot better, though. It could definitely be a lot better. So this is just like my perspective from not really being very informed about other MMOs.
It feels like a battleground that only lasts 30 minutes and can only be done once per day.
And we need more people here, by the way.
The combat mechanics and lack of smoothness, as well as infinite stagger, make this entire mode a complete mess. Factions in New World lack consequence. It doesn't impact you in any way which faction owns what territory. The only impact factions seem to have is...
I want to pause here just real quick. The background, look how good the background is. Where he's running around at. Look how fucking amazing that looks. It is so fucking good, dude. That is the one thing that I think they get right, is the fact that the graphics look really, really good. RTX has been activated. The factions, like, the thing is, the factions are, they need to make, like, the other 2 factions, like, more interesting. As I said, you can either be Conan the Barbarian, basically like the captain or the quarterback of the football team, or you could be a nerd or a Scientologist or like a religious zealot. I don't feel like the factions are like equally appealing.
2 faction PvP quests and that's it. Honestly, I think they should just remove factions entirely and shift the focus more onto guilds and make guild missions instead of faction missions. At least that would make the game feel more multiplayer.
Make it bigger. Like, you don't have 50 people in a company.
Lacks incentive and feels pointless. You get next to no rewards for killing other players, and due to how easy it is to run away, almost every kill comes as a result of being outnumbered. The only purpose of PvP flagging in New World is for the PvP faction faction missions, which don't actually require that you do any PvP. New World just straight up lacks endgame. You've got territory sieges, which are a mess and last 30 minutes. You've got invasions, which are a horde PvE mode that also last about 30 minutes. And then you've got corrupted breaches, which you can't really consider them endgame since you have access to them from level 20-ish.
They're not that great.
And then you've got high-level grind spots with bosses that you just zerg down in a large group with no real challenge.
That's one of the big problems in my mind, is the end game content doesn't really have a lot of challenge to it, and that's why I want to do the arena bosses, and we're doing the arena bosses today. By the way, we are doing the arena bosses today with the motherfucking boys, and we're going to go in there and we're going to fight the end bosses. So I'll show you guys what the hardest content the game has to offer today. And we're going to do that like right after this video. And the reason we're going over to like this giant monolith, and at the top of the monolith, there's, I think, like a boss that we need to kill this boss. And if we kill him, we get a key that unlocks the arena for us to fight one of these bosses. That's how it works.
Doesn't seem to be any real fun content at endgame that incentivizes you to gear up to experience in this game.
Yeah,
overall,
there's no
New World is a
incentive to
visually
gear.
beautiful MMORPG with decent foundations to build upon in the future. In its current state, though, it needs a lot of work and direction to become an MMO that people will play for longer than 2 weeks. It seems to me that the developers don't know who this game is for yet. Is it for PvP fans, PvE fans, or is it for ultra-casual gamers that don't have a lot of time and just want a good-looking world to hang out in? For me personally,
I think that's basically the problem, is that they probably shouldn't they shouldn't make the game for one like one audience. They should try to make it for multiple audiences, but focus on one thing. In my opinion, I think a game that focuses on PvP is not a very good game, because usually it just turns toxic like Classic has. And like, I think EVE also has that problem, but like EVE is much more of a tight-knit community, so it's not as bad. But I do think they need PvE content as well. And also, I know that there's like scaling in the wars, which also really just like completely devalues gear. Like this, what he said here, I personally can't see myself playing the game for longer than 2 weeks, currently due to there being no end game to really gear up and look forward to. That's kind of how I see it too.
Personally, I love being in the world of New World, and after I stop playing, I do feel an itch to come back and do some gathering and crafting, but with the lack of endgame, I quickly question why I'm bothering to gear up and progress in the first place. Even if I had max gear and 1 million gold, what would I be able to do with that I couldn't already do at level 50, for example? It's a similar feeling to what I have with Black Desert Online, really. I love being in the world, but I wish the game just had something waiting for me later on that's fun, challenging, and replayable to put my new gear upgrades to the test. And whether or not Amazon Game Studios can design that style of content before its 2021 release, for me, will be the thing that determines the success of the game. But that's it for this video, guys. This was probably the longest first impressions video I've ever done, and it took a lot of time to make, so if you enjoyed it, please help me out with a like. As always, let me know your thoughts on New World in the comments below, and do you think this game will be a success? Feel free to follow me on social media, links for that on screen. Thanks for watching, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you again really soon.
Yeah, guys, I understand that a lot of people are saying it's a preview, it's, you know, it's alpha, it's beta, it's only the first patch of the expansion, the game just released, they'll fix it later, they'll fix it in the first patch, they'll fix it in the second patch, whenever they introduce the expansion, they'll fix it then. You know, this is what happens, and so, like, I get that you guys want to do that, but let's not. Let's not. Let's talk about the problems of the game as soon as they happen, and then we'll give feedback, right? And like, I think that it's very easy to say that the majority of the map isn't open yet. So if you complain that the map is too small, then that's kind of dumb, because the most of the map isn't available. But in terms of like combat not being good and there not being good gear progression, just because there's a larger area in the map doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be more area for you to do different things in. Or like progress yourself at max level then. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's the video right there. It's the entire reason for a preview anyway, to figure out what needs to be changed. Yeah, is common sense void nowadays? Well, I think people see that. Like, I think people have like a very bad opinion and like perspective on betas and the way that betas are supposed to be consumed by like content creators and by players. In my opinion, I think betas should be pursued as a what the fuck are they doing? What the hell is going on here? What? What the fuck? What the fuck is this?